Reimagining Success, episode 390. And this one, I want to talk about the client you should not have said yes to, and more importantly, why you did. So this one's for you if you're a few years into your business and you've noticed a pattern. You end up working with people who aren't quite right, doing work that isn't quite what you want to be doing, and you're not sure how it keeps happening. Welcome to Reimagining Success, the podcast that helps you build a profitable business as an independent expert, one that works for you and your lifestyle. I'm your host, Anna Lundberg, former corporate insider turned business mentor, executive coach, and mum of two. Whether you're a solopreneur, a coach, speaker, consultant, I'm here to guide you in creating a business that gives you freedom, flexibility, and the fulfillment you're looking for. Ready to redefine success and build a business that you love? Let's get started. Here's the reality, right? Everyone has them. The client that felt slightly off from the start, but you said yes anyway. The project that drifted far away from what you originally agreed. The relationship that's been running on inertia for longer than it should. And this isn't a beginner problem, because when we're starting out as a beginner, we say yes to everyone, and that's fine because we need the money, we need the experience. We don't yet know who our ideal client is, and that makes sense. The more interesting question is why we still do that when we're more established. So you have enough clients, you have enough experience, and you have enough reputation to be selective and still end up with the wrong clients. Now, that's not desperation, but it's something much more subtle than that. So I think there are a few reasons why you might take on the wrong clients in my experience. And the first is that the filter drifted without you actually noticing. So when you started out a few years ago, maybe you had an ideal client in mind. You wrote it down, maybe it was just a feeling. And over time, the business has evolved. Your expertise has deepened, your positioning has shifted, and the kind of work that you want to do has changed, but the filter hasn't kept up with that. So you're still saying yes to the profile that made sense 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever you did that work. And it's not the one that makes sense now. So if you're a consultant who built your reputation in one sector, spent years getting known there, and is now exhausted by it, she wants to move into work in kind of an adjacent space, but every new inquiry comes from the old sector, because that's what her positioning, her network, and her past work signals. So she keeps saying yes because the money is good and the client is familiar, and the business keeps pulling her in a direction she's trying to leave. The filter isn't wrong because you made a mistake. It's wrong because you changed, but the filter didn't. So that's one of the main reasons I see why you might be taking on wrong clients. The filter has drifted and you haven't changed that filter to help your business change along with it. Second, obligation dressed up as opportunity. Let's say a long-term client asks something outside of your usual scope. So a warm referral comes in from someone that you respect, someone you like personally, wants to work with you. None of these are bad things. But none of them are reasons to say yes to work that isn't right. So what can happen is, the relationship, the loyalty, the not wanting to disappoint someone overrides the honest assessment of whether this actually is a good fit. So you say yes, of course you do. You're a lovely person. You deliver. You resent it slightly. You tell yourself, you know what? No, it's a one-off just to help this person out. But let's face it really is. So the question to ask before saying yes, especially to a referral or to an existing client extension, is if this came in cold from someone I didn't know, would I want it? And I think there's something happening, just as an aside here, that's a little bit pandering to our ego. And it's not desperation that, we need the client, but it's still, they want us, or they know us and they respect us and they really want us to do this work. And we allow that to kind of be a pull in a direction that we don't want. And I think that can be a little bit dangerous. Totally fine if you want to say yes, but just be aware that you're choosing to do that because of the relationship and it's not the right direction for your business. Now, the final scenario, final thing that might be happening is that you don't even have a filter at the point of inquiry. So I talked about this last week on the episode on infrastructure, but I think it deserves its own treatment because a lot of really well-established solopreneurs and experts don't have a genuine qualification process. And because it's a lot of referrals and word of mouth and, it's very fluid, a very nice, generous process where someone expresses interest, you have a call, you like them, you send a proposal. Lovely jubbly. But the call is doing the work of a filter without being designed to be one, if that makes sense. So it's a conversation. It shouldn't be a diagnostic, or it could be a diagnostic if you set your business up that way. But here's the thing, by the time you're on a call with someone, you're already invested. They've given you their time and you've given them yours. And so saying no at that point feels awkward from your side. And you're sort of, yeah, you're already invested, you're already bought in. So the filter needs to happen before the call. What do they need to be true, whether about their situation, their budget, their stage, their problem, for this to be worth either of your time, to be honest? And if you can't answer that question clearly, then you don't have a filter, right? You're just giving them direct access to your calendar. And it's not being sort of mercenary about it, but if someone doesn't have money for this particular thing, if they don't even see the need, then maybe just kind of checking. I've shared before a couple of examples where people got on the phone with me and they were comparing me with 10 other providers. And I just thought, this is not a particularly good use of our time. Someone might just be kind of exploring. And if you've got a lot of time on your hands, then by all means, you can be generous with your time and have that chat. But if you're busy with delivery and you're wanting to grow and scale within limited hours alongside family and so on, then maybe you can't, unfortunately, take every call just to generously see, let's see where this takes me. So it depends a little bit on the season that you're in your business. But I would highly recommend having a filter, and we'll talk about this more tangibly in a moment, to make sure that once you're on the call, you're clear at least on what the expectation is on both sides. And so, as ever, the pattern underneath these three examples or reasons, I suppose, the filter has drifted without you noticing. It's obligation, but kind of dressed up as opportunity. Or this final one, the absence of a real filter at the point at which they're inquiring. The pattern is the same, that the decision is being made by default or by obligation, which is never nice, or by inertia, right? It's not active choice. You're not intentionally choosing to work with this client. Now, the truth is, I suppose, the wrong client rarely feels obviously wrong at the point of saying yes. It feels fine, or it feels good enough, or maybe just it would be awkward to say no. So it's only in delivery, when the scope creeps, when the dynamic feels off, when you're doing work you don't want to be doing, that you start to recognize it. And by then you're committed. And I have to say, and I've thought about this a lot, whenever I have regretted and resented a project or a choice of working with a client, I've always been able to trace it back to an inkling that I had earlier on. It's just that I chose not to listen to that inkling. And I'm sure you're the same, that you by now have an understanding of with whom you can do your best work, who will respect your boundaries, who will be a good client, as much as who you can do good work with or for, depending on your model. And you really should listen to that. Okay, so how can we actually change this? Well, obviously, the first step is to get honest about who you actually want to work with now, not who you wanted to work with years ago when you started. And it's not really a branding exercise, right? It's actually an honest internal conversation. So you can ask yourself things like, what does the work feel like when it's going really well? And who's the client in those situations? What's true about the project, the dynamic, the scope of the work that really lights you up, that you love, that, brings in the things that we talk about, the money, but also the fulfillment and the flexibility and all that jazz, right? Doing interesting work with people we respect and like on our own terms, essentially, right? That's the filter. And build your filter from that. Don't build it from some kind of abstract ideal client profile that you've come up with, on a piece of paper. By now you have experience, you know what works and what doesn't. And in the same way as you can never tell exactly what a job's going to be like from a job description, you can't tell exactly what a client's going to be like just by sort of their age and demographics and so on. So you really need to be a bit more nuanced in how you're filtering for these people you actually want to work with now. Speaking of filter, you want to design that filter into the process before the call, ideally. So whether it's an application form, so for example, for my off-script community, I have a form, not because I'm curating, I am curating. If it's someone I already know, they could go directly to buy, but I'm making sure that it's the right fit for the community and the right fit for them. It's a mutual good fit, right? It's not just a free-for-all, anyone can sign up at any time. And that could unfortunately offset the balance, and it might not be the right program for them, either because they're not ready or they're too advanced. for my one-to-one work, I definitely want to have a call with someone to make sure that's the right fit. And of course, that they can be coached and supported by me and want to be, and I can provide the support that they want. And so having an application form, a questionnaire, even just a really clear statement on your website of who this is and isn't for can be really, really helpful. And it's important to say, don't just pretend to be exclusive for the sake of it. You don't have to say like, oh, it's only a few chosen people, but you want to make sure that it is right for both of you. You want to, again, be able to do your best work with them, and you want to help them get results, whatever that looks like. So to make sure the people who get on a call with you are genuinely likely to be right, you do need to have some kind of filter or qualification. And that's, as I said, better for them as much as it is for you. It's not some fake scarcity tactic. Obviously, you need to be comfortable with the cost of saying no, as well as the cost of not saying no. And it's my favorite Brené Brown quote, which is choose discomfort over resentment. So look, saying no to the wrong client is uncomfortable in the moment. It has a short-term cost, not just the discomfort, but also the lost revenue, right? Uncertainty about what comes next. Oh my gosh, if I say no to this client, will I get another one? So awkward conversation plus missing out on the money. And it's never nice to say no to money, let's face it. But not saying no has a longer-term cost that probably is even worse, I'd argue, even more costly. Time and energy spent on work that isn't right, capacity that isn't available for the work you actually want to do, and ultimately a business that keeps pulling you in a direction that you're actually trying to leave. And I'd say most people are very aware of that first cost, right? The awkward conversation and the loss of revenue, but we systematically underestimate the second longer term cost of not saying no. So that's something to bear in mind. And I guess the final thing to say on that is I would really recommend having the conversation earlier rather than later. So if a client relationship has drifted, if scope has expanded, dynamic has shifted, the work has moved away from what you actually want to be doing, then that conversation is only going to get harder the longer you leave it. It doesn't have to be dramatic, as with all of these things. It can be simple as, hey, I want to make sure we're still set up in the right way for where both of us are right now. This is what I'm seeing. Here's what I'd like to change. How would that work for you? Most clients actually will respond much better than you expect. And the ones who don't, well, that is useful information too. So I hope that this episode didn't resonate, but I believe it will resonate for a lot of you in terms of what I've seen with my own clients as well as my clients' clients. And I hope it's given you food for thought as to a few little practical things that you can do. And you are the boss here. You do get to decide this, if not for the current client, certainly for the next one. And a few ideas that you can already run off and, put that filter in before your Calendly link, or have a think about what's the cost next time of not saying no as much as the cost of saying no. Definitely food for thought and a really important piece of the puzzle of building a business that works for you. I'll see you next week. If you want to get clear on who you're actually best placed to work with right now and where your business model might need a rethink, then the Solopreneur Diagnostic at onestepoutside.com/diagnostic is a good place to start. 10 minutes, personalised report and specific next steps for where you actually are. That's onestepoutside.com/diagnostic.